Hey everyone, my name's Caitlyn and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. Today I am going to be doing a fun video, which is recommending to you some of my favorite marriage of convenience stories. Now, this may be shocking to some of you, but marriage of convenience is not actually a go-to trope for me. It won't automatically disqualify a book from me wanting to read it, but it's also not like a selling point per se for me either. But I have read some that I have absolutely loved, and I wanted to come on here and share them with you. And these are books that will definitely become favorites for people who love marriage of convenience. But if you are not the biggest fan of marriage of convenience like myself, you probably will still love them as well. So yeah, just wanted to come on here and share those. Now, just to set the record straight, I am single, I am not married. This is a prop that I got off of Amazon really cheap a couple years ago to use the background for Bookstagram photos, but I just thought it would be fun to dress the part of a bride since we're talking about marriage of convenience books today. So let's just jump right into it. I will try to give like a little tiny synopsis about each one, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the first one is, of course, because you can't talk about marriage of convenience without talking about Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. Michael Hosea. Need I say more? I think not. Yeah, I never recommend this one as just like a blanket recommendation, because I know that people, everyone's different. Everyone has different, comfort levels and triggers. So definitely do your homework, see if this is one that's going to be a good fit for you. But yeah, so good. Okay, next one is The Reluctant Duchess by Roseanna M. White. Now, this one is about Rowena, who is the daughter of a Scottish laird. And interesting thing I learned from this book is it actually, in this is set in 1912, I believe, or maybe it's 1911. Let me see. Yeah, it is 1912. And at this time, even though Scottish lairds, they were part of the House of Lords in England and did serve there at times, but the laws for succession of the title in Scotland were different than in England, so women could inherit that title if they were the only heir to it, which was not the case in England, but was the case in Scotland. So Rowena is the oldest daughter. She's her father's oldest daughter. He is now, her mother is dead. He's now remarried to another woman who he has a young daughter with, and his wife is pregnant with what could possibly be a boy. So that would take precedence over Rowena and knock her out of the standing. So there's this guy that her father is forcing her to marry. And it's not a spoiler because we find out in chapter 1. We don't see it. You kind of have flashbacks to it, but we know that prior to the start of the story, he had raped her. And yeah, so that's kind of hard, but it doesn't go into super a lot of depth. She does have some memories of it, but yeah. Now, the hero is Bryce, who is a brand new duke. His father has recently passed away, and he has taken over the title. He's from England. His mother is Scottish, though. So every year they come, this book starts in Scotland, because Rowena obviously is Scottish. So they are in Scotland for a holiday. And yeah, there ends up being a marriage of convenience. He winds up marrying her to save her from the other guy. And yeah, it's so good. I have to say, Bryce, I just adore him. He is probably he's right up there with Michael Hosea and how amazing he is. So yeah, highly, highly recommend this one. Okay, then those last two were historical. Now we have a contemporary. We have An Unlikely Proposal by Toni Shiloh. Now this is Trinity and Omar, and they are best friends. Trinity is a diabetic, and she, I believe, used to be a school librarian who has recently lost her job due to budget cuts. And with that, of course, went her health insurance. And Omar is a firefighter. He has 2 little girls. He's a widower, and he needs someone to take care of his girls while he's at work. So he comes up with the idea of, hey, let's get married. It'll solve both of our problems. And yeah, so the story just kind of goes from there. It's very, very fun. I highly recommend it. I will say, though, one thing about Love Inspired, they only keep them in print for about a year. So you won't be able to find the paperback new, most likely, anywhere. You can probably find it used, and it is available on ebook everywhere they are sold. But, so yeah, highly recommend this one. Okay. Next is The Doctor's Lady by Jody Hedlund. Now, this is an old one by Jody. This is actually her 2nd book, and it is my favorite of her books that I have read. I just love it so much. This is about Priscilla and Eli, and Priscilla wants to go to India on the mission field. And Eli has spent time in Oregon territory, it's historical, and is going back there. He's a doctor. He's going to be going back there. But then they both find out that the mission board is no longer sending unmarried people to the mission field. So their marriage of convenience comes about so that they can both go and serve on the mission field in Oregon. So it's their journey along the Oregon Trail, and it's fantastic. And yeah, talking about it makes me want to read it again. So highly recommend it. Okay, the next one is The Convenient Groom by Denise Hunter. So this is another contemporary, and this one actually did become a Hallmark Channel movie, though they did make some changes to it. So this is about Kate, and she is a celebrity marriage counselor. She has a book coming out about, I don't know, something about how to find Mr. Right for you or something like that. And she's getting married. So everything's all great except for the fact that her fiance leaves her at the altar. Well, then this guy named Lucas Wright steps in and marries her. And they, if I remember correctly, it's been years since I read it, but I believe they knew each other in high school, I think. So it's very sweet. I loved it so much. It's actually one of my favorite Denise Hunter books that I have read. And yeah, the movie is good too, but the book is way better in my opinion. Interesting thing about this book, there are 2 covers for it that you may see. One of them has a lot of, I'll put it up here, put them both up here. First one, the original one, has a lot of green on it. It has a bride with her back to the camera and her fingers crossed behind her back. This is the edition that I read, but there's also another cover that has a man and woman facing the camera on it. And that's this cover. Now, I have it on good authority from Denise herself that there is actually a bit of a difference in the faith story between the 2 editions. The original one, the one with the bride with her fingers crossed behind her back, has a much lighter faith thread in it. And the other one with the man and woman on the cover was published later and has a stronger, more overt faith element to it. So yeah, I would be very interested to reread it and read the other cover, the second cover with the man and woman on the cover, read that version and just kind of compare the 2. But yeah, that's a fun little fact I just wanted to share with you. Okay, the next one is, of course, because you can't talk about Marriage of Convenience again without talking about The Mistletoe Countess by Pepper Basham, which, yeah, I mean, as we all know, I adore Grace and Freddie. I mean, need I say more? It is a Marriage of Convenience. Does not have to be read at Christmas. Christmas Element's very light, can be read any time of the year, but please read it. It is fantastic. Thank you. Okay. The next one is The Isaac Project by Sarah Monzon. And this one is another contemporary. It's about Becky, she has a farm, she has horses, and she has a pretty good life. She's got this, I think if I remember correctly, I was just like refreshing myself on the description. I think if I remember correctly, she has a boyfriend that she thinks is, committed relationship, and then she sees him kissing someone else. So yeah. Then she finds out that her grandfather, who has raised her, is dying. And his dying wish is to see her, settle down in a committed relationship. And so she turns, she turns to the Bible, kind of like a basic description. She turns to the Bible for inspiration and is inspired by the story of Isaac and Rebecca. And that leads her to the idea of a marriage of convenience. And then we have Luke, who is a firefighter who lives several states away, and he doesn't know her at all. And there's a connection somehow between friends that he winds up finding out about it, and then he can sense God telling him to go and marry her. And yeah, it's great. There's great romance. There's a little bit of suspense in it as well. And yeah, it's fantastic. I loved it so much. Okay, now if I didn't say it, all of those that I've mentioned so far have been Christian fiction books. Now I'm going to move into some that are just closed door romance that I equally love. Okay, so we have The Buy-In by Emma St. Clair. Now this is Pat and Lindy, and they, if I remember correctly, knew each other, and I think they dated in college, but then they haven't seen each other since. And Lindy was going off to travel the world, but then her younger sister had a baby, and she was single, and she had lots of issues, I think, with drug usage and other things. And so Lindy comes back to raise the baby basically as her own. That baby is now I don't know, 6. I think she's 6, 5 or 6, something like that. And her sister has come back to town and is trying to fight her for custody of this child. And Pat is a former football player, and his dad has just announced that he has purchased a large portion of this town of Sheepcake, Texas, and I think we should move there. So they are going to be moving there. Pat and his 2 brothers and his dad are going to be moving there. This just happens to be the town that Lindy lives in. So they end up marrying to help with her custody fight. And it's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's hilarious, as all of Emma's books are. It's completely clean. There's no language in it. Completely closed door, and it's fantastic. Okay. Then we have one of my very favorite books from this year, and that is Betrothal or Breakaway by Leah Brunner. This is book 3 in the DC Eagles series. This is about Ford Remington and Amber Park, who have been best friends since they were in 2nd grade. And Ford has been secretly in love with her for a lot of years, but never told her. And Amber's boyfriend left her when she got pregnant. And then when she was giving birth, they discovered that she has a heart condition. She has a hole in her heart that needs to be repaired. And so she needs surgery, and she doesn't have insurance to cover it. So Ford's suggestion is, he's a NHL hockey player, so his suggestion is, hey, why don't we get married? That way my, fancy NHL insurance can cover your surgery. And then, in a year or so, we'll get divorced and whatever. But this book, oh my goodness, this book, it is so sweet. Ford is just, he's the kind of hero that you're just want to protect at all costs, because he is just so tender and sweet, and he's just amazing. I just love this book with my whole heart. It's so fantastic. It truly is. I will say Leah is a little bit on the steamier side of Closed Door. She does do fade to black. She does one fade to black scene in every book that she has. And she does have some mild language in her books. There is occasionally some innuendo as well. So her books may not be for everyone, but so those are things to be aware of. But I adore this book so much. It is just incredible. Yeah, loved it so much. Okay, and then the last one is one that I just finished yesterday at the time that I'm reading this, and that is A Not So Fictional Fall by Savannah Scott. And this one is just incredible. It truly is. I loved it so much. So we have Tasha, who is a huge reader in Bookstagrammar and editor, audiobook narrator, like all the bookish things. She's involved in it. And she goes on a trip to California to meet the author of her favorite author, and discovers that she's actually not a woman like her pen name suggested, but it's actually a guy using a female pen name. So then it turns out to be this guy named Pierre, who is French and delicious, and he winds up having an issue with his visa. He's in the US for a year for a book tour and to finish writing his book. And so, yeah, he's got some issues with that. So he needs help from somebody. So his manager, agent guy requests for Tasha to marry him. So yeah, they get married so he can stay in the country, but it's so good. So swoony and completely closed door, and yet delightful, as are all of Savannah's books. This might be my favorite of hers so far, but it's definitely one of my favorites. So yeah, highly, highly recommend it. Okay, so that's all of them so far. And unless there's something I'm forgetting, which there very well may be, it's entirely possible. But that's all for this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Let me know if you are a fan of Marriage of Convenience books or not. And if you are, if you have any recommendations, leave them below, because I would totally love to check them out. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.